So what is going on, everybody? Fernando Silva here with another video, and today I want to talk about the iPad mini for the last time in a little while because we've had this one for 2 weeks and I wanted to give you guys my 2-week review on this iPad mini because overall it's an amazing device, but at what cost, right? Let's figure out what's going on. So I do want to get all the specs and stuff out of the way very quickly. So from a spec variant, you have a 64 gig and a 256 gig, and then you have a cellular 5G option. So it starts at that $499, so $500 for the 64 gig. Then I think it's $650 for the 256 just with Wi-Fi, which is the one that I have. I have it in the purple colorway, which is, more space gray than purple if you kind of hit it in the light. And then to add cellular, I believe it's $130. So if you want to go all in, you're spending basically $800 on this device with cellular and full spec in terms of 256 gigs of storage. So keep that in mind when it comes to pricing and different variations of this thing. And then the major change that came with this iPad mini is that it got a full redesign for the first time in, I want to say, 8 years, right? I think 2012 is when the first iPad mini came out, and it kept that design language for 5 different iterations, right? They just improved the internals, improved the specs, added Touch ID, improved the cameras and things like that. But this is the first time that we now have a brand new form factor with the iPad mini lineup. So it's copying the iPad Air 4, it's copying the iPad Pros. It's basically a shrunken iPad Air 4 in an 8.3-inch screen and form factor. It has pretty much everything that the iPad Air does in terms of how it's designed, the industrial design, the camera bump, the LED flash, no home button, Touch ID on the top. And those are all things that came from the iPad Air down to the iPad mini, and they did kind of not add some of the pro features like Face ID and stuff like that, probably to keep costs down. And then there are 4 new things to keep in mind with this iPad mini. So the 4 things that were added to here were Touch ID versus Face ID. So they did add Touch ID. It had Touch ID before, but it had it on the home button. Now you have it on the lock button. And I had my thoughts on Touch ID, but we'll get to that in a second. And then it also added new camera systems. So you have the 120-degree viewing angle selfie camera that brings center stage, which is beautiful. And then the 12-megapixel rear camera with flash. Those are all new cameras that came to this new iPad mini that the iPad mini 5 didn't have. Another big thing is that Apple finally forewent the lightning cable and went with the USB-C port. So now the only things left with lightning are the iPad 9 or the standard iPad, and then you have all the iPhones. And then of course some accessories like the Magic Keyboard and the Magic Mouse and the Magic Trackpad and things like that. Those are also Lightning versus USB-C, but all major things now. So all the iPads, all the MacBooks, those are all USB-C, which is awesome. And I'm just hoping Apple, little by little, just keeps taking away that Lightning, But I think we're gonna get to the point with the iPhones where we're just gonna forget about USB-C totally, forget about Lightning, and go totally portless. But we'll see what they do with the iPhone 14. And then lastly, they did add Apple Pencil 2 support. So no longer are you using that Apple Gen 1, so the Apple Pencil Gen 1 where you plug it into the bottom. I know somebody came at me in the comments once when I complained about that, and it did bring like an adapter so you can plug it into the wall. But again, just like the thought process and the design language of how you actually charge it into the actual iPad, I hated it. I always hated it, and I only used it for a little bit with the original iPad Pro. But outside of that, I didn't really have too much experience with the Apple Pencil 1. But now this brings Apple Pencil 2 support, so magnetically attaches, magnetically charges, and you can use one Apple Pencil for multiple iPads now. So it's not like you need a dedicated Apple Pencil just for this one and another dedicated Apple Pencil for the iPad Pro back here. So it's all fine and dandy. It just came from, again, the iPad Air 4 and the iPad Pro lineup down to the iPad mini. So now let's talk about all the good and the things that I love about this iPad mini, because even though this is tiny and the fact that it's smaller makes it seem like it's less powerful or more like a toy or something like that because of the size of it, especially coming from a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, this thing still packs a punch. It's rocking the latest A15 Bionic, so from a single thread and single core use, this thing is gonna run through everything. And even with multi-core use, right? Even with multi-thread use, yes. So yes, the iPad Pros are still a little bit faster from multi-thread and multi-core scores because of their GPU power and things like that, but it's not that far off. It's really not that far off, and from a single core and single task, it's still faster than the 2018 and the 2020 iPad Pro. So keep that in mind. Like, this thing is no slouch just because it's tiny. Because I've done everything from as simple as, just watching Netflix and YouTube to as kind of serious as video editing and photo editing, and even running some of the Microsoft Suite products like PowerPoint, Excel, and then Google Docs and numbers and things like that. So I've done pretty much everything that I personally can do on this iPad mini, and it handles it perfectly. Like, there's been 0 hiccups, 0 issues. Everything runs quickly, everything renders at a good speed, and then from a rendering standpoint, this is still, again, no slouch. It can handle pretty much everything you throw at it, and it'll handle it quickly, because again, the A15 Bionic is in all the latest iPhones. It's Apple's latest chipset in the A series. So remember that when you think about this iPad. Yes, it's small, yes, it's compact, yes, it seems like a little toy that you throw around, but it can handle pretty much everything. So like I've mentioned, I've handled pretty much every single application from the Microsoft suite of products to, running video chats while in multitasking with Google Hangouts. So this thing can be a work machine if you want it to be. And then the beautiful thing about the iPad lineup is that they don't discriminate or differentiate depending on how much money you spend. So that $329 iPad 9 is going to run the same software. It's going to be the same exact experience as a $2,000 M1 iPad Pro. And this is no exception, right? So everything that you can do on the iPad Pro, you're going to be able to do on the iPad mini. You're going to be able to run all the same applications. You're going to be able to do and surf the web just as you would on the iPad Pro and on the iPad mini. So that's, a pro and a con to iPadOS, that the fact that, yes, that $330 iPad will also run iPadOS 15, as well as this iPad Pro, as well as this iPad mini and the iPad Air. So if you're used to running iPadOS on those, this is going to have zero learning curve, and you're going to be able to do everything that you were doing on those other iPads on this one. And then the final amazing thing is the size. And this is going to go also into the negative because the size does kind of weigh it down a little bit, but the size is just super portable. So if somebody needs a very, very portable device that you can kind of throw around a little bit, use it on the couch, use it on the go, but then also want to be able to do some intense work on it when you need to, this thing is awesome, guys. This thing, you can throw it around, you can bring it anywhere, put it in a pocket, put it in a purse, in a little duffel bag. You can, it's almost like it's a phablet in my opinion. I can hold it in one hand, put it to my face. This is a phablet, and I really do like the form factor in certain situations. So now let's bring up, I guess, the quote-unquote bad about this iPad mini. And honestly, I can't even really categorize it as something bad. It's just this I don't know realm and this weird limbo state that the iPad mini is living in, at least for me personally. So the first thing that I honestly don't like, and Patrick Rambles kind of gave me a little bit, so shout out to him if you guys want to check out his channel. It's going to be in the description.
Reason number one, Touch ID. Now, this is obviously not my number one reason why I love this iPad mini so much, but I had to put this first to troll my man Fernando Silva a little bit. He hates Touch ID, and he gave it as his first reason not to buy the iPad mini, and we actually genuinely disagree on this matter. I actually love Touch ID.
But I really don't like Touch ID. This new implementation of Touch ID does not work for me. I don't know if, maybe I just got some greasy fingers or sweaty hands, or maybe I got a defective device, but Touch ID doesn't really work that well for me. It's like a 50-50 hit or miss, and then sometimes when I actually do get in, you have to rest your finger on there, but my inclination is to always press down on the lock button because that's what I'm used to. Lock buttons for me have been on the iPhone, have been on the iPad Pro, which both have Face ID, and I've been using Face ID for, I want to say 3 years now. Whenever the iPhone 10 came out, 4 years ago, that's when Face ID first got implemented, and I haven't had to actually do anything besides press down to lock my device. So now that I have to kind of sit there, rest it, and then if I do press down on it, I lock it by accident. I've done that way too many times. Touch ID, I love the implementation on the Magic Keyboards, on the laptops and things like that. I love the implementation on the Magic Keyboards, on the laptops, but Touch ID on the lock button, miss me with that. I really don't like it. Patrick, I don't know, you might be on your own. And then the only other real negative that I found about this doesn't even have to do with the iPad itself. It has to do with the stuff around it, right? So you have to think about the size and the price situation. So if you're somebody that has a bunch of Mac products like a MacBook Air, an iPad Pro, and you have room for another iPad in your lineup, by all means, grab it. You know who you are. You can click off of this video. It's fine. But if you're somebody that's walking into an Apple store and you can only get one product, or you want one iPad out of the lineup, then this isn't the best situation, especially if you want something to get work done on, especially if you're going to consider your computer. It's just too small to get a lot of work done. It's very tedious. I've done it. I've edited a video on here, and I don't edit a video on here for the same reason I don't edit a video on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. From a capability standpoint, LumaFusion runs on both of these perfectly, right? And I can fully edit a video, I can fully export it, I can do whatever I want, but the screen real estate is just not comfortable, right? It's not comfortable enough. I feel like I'm straining myself. I feel like I'm having to zoom in a lot. I don't like how compact it is. I like having more screen real estate with my iPad Pro, with that 13-inch screen or the 12.9-inch screen to get those kind of tasks done. It's just too small. There's a reason why I don't go into a Word document and start a Word document from scratch on my iPhone. And the same reason goes for this iPad mini. It's just too small to get a lot of work done, a lot of typing done. And now that this doesn't have pin connectors, which is another negative, means that Apple is considering this a full tablet. They're not trying to add accessories like a keyboard to make it more professional. They want this to be a tablet that can be thrown around, put in a purse, used as a supplemental device to an iPhone or a supplemental device to an iPad or another MacBook. So again, if you're the person that has a bunch of different Apple devices and they just want another one and they can afford another one and you're fine with it, then by all means, grab it. But if you're somebody that's trying to make a decision to just buy one iPad, then there are so many better options with better price points, like the 11-inch iPad Pro refurbished, the 2020 version. is still the same price as this one, if not a little bit cheaper, and you get way more power, you get a better size screen, you get the ability to attach a Magic Keyboard. So there's just more things that you can do with those iPads at that form factor. And that's been the biggest negative for me. Like, this iPad is just in limbo. It's a very cool device. I love the form factor. And if you're willing to spend $500 to $800 for a throw around iPad to kind of hand to your kids and stuff like that, then that's awesome. And that's what it's going to be used for. Like this is a couch device. This is a consumption machine. Like, I just sit there and watch football, watch Netflix, YouTube, answer some YouTube comments, little tasks like that. But if you want to get some serious work done, I'm going to my iPad, right? I'm going to my iPad, I'm going to a desk and getting that work done. Versus this, I'm using it on the couch. I'm not really using it at a desk too much. But that is really my 2 cents. So basically, this is a very powerful computer. It's a very powerful tablet. I personally think Apple wants this to be a tablet and a tablet only, versus Apple doesn't really know what they want to do with the iPad Pros and all the pin connector iPads, because they can kind of be used like laptops, but not really. So like I mentioned earlier on Twitter, this is like the third car that your family always talks about getting, right? You have your 2 main cars that are utility, that they're being used all the time to go to school and stuff like that. And the family always talks about getting that third car that's like a Jeep to go off-roading. But again, that car is the last one to get bought and the first one to leave the door whenever you actually had to get something done and you need it, right? So that's what this iPad mini is. It's that third car that, it would be nice if you have it to do some fun stuff with it, but if you don't have it, you can get away with all the other iPads and get a lot more work done and get more utility out of them. But that is my 2 cents on this iPad mini. Love the form factor, love the device. I just don't know where it lives unless, again, you own multiple iPads and you can have that many iPads. But that's going to do for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out channel sponsor Paperlike. Don't forget to check out Patrick's channel as well. He's doing some awesome stuff over there. And until next time, peace.